Hey everyone, Sheila here from Life with Pets. So today we're going to be doing a video on snails and what snails can live with betta fish. It's a question that we get asked an awful lot, so I thought that we would take a look at the snails that we own and go into a little bit of detail. We're going to talk about breeding, we're going to talk about what we feed them and which ones I personally think are best for betta fish. So we're going to take a look at Ramshorn snails, assassin snails, trumpet snails, Nerite snails and also the mystery snail. So we're going to take a look at quite a few of them today. So let's start with Ramshorn snails and assassin snails. The assassin snail is the striped one at the front left of the screen, well, almost the middle of the screen. That one is the assassin snail, and they will bury themselves into the substrate and then they will attack the snails that they're going to eat, which are the Ramshorn snails, from sort of below. So that is basically what they feed on. They will also feed on pellet and gel food. However, I have found with the assassin snails that they do prefer to eat the Ramshorn snails. So that is why we have so many Ramshorn snails. We actually have them in 3 different tanks because we are deliberately breeding them, one for an upcoming project, but also to feed the assassin snails. Now the Ramshorn snails will breed very, very quickly, especially if water quality is good and there is plenty of food on offer. Then you can literally end up with hundreds and hundreds of them in a very short space of time. So if you don't want an explosion of snails, then Ramshorn snails are probably not the way to go. Now with the assassin snails, I have had no issue with betta fish living with them, probably because they keep themselves to themselves and they do stay on the bottom of the tank. They don't really climb up the sides of the glass. They will do it occasionally, but not very often. Now the Ramshorn snails, I have had a very mixed reaction with those. Some betta fish I have found live with them no issue whatsoever, and I have had several betta fish that will actually kill them. So that one is very mixed, and I guess it really will depend on the specific betta fish, and that is going to be the case for all of these. But one of these snails that I'm going to show you today, or one group of snails I'm going to show you today, I have had absolutely no issues whatsoever living with any of our betta fish. I have just managed to get some footage of one of the assassin snails coming up out of the substrate, and this is what they do to then sort of ambush what they want to eat. I've had a lot of questions in, do they bother with the shrimp at all? And they don't. We have had an absolute shrimp explosion in this tank, but we do a lot of water changes on it, and we do also feed very heavy because we're wanting to breed the snails. So let's move on to the next snails, and this is going to be the Nerite group of snails. These are probably my favorite for living with betta fish. I have not had this snail fail with living with a single one of them, and one of our betta fish, which is Bandit, he is a killer. Basically anything you put in his tank, he will kill it. We have tried Ramshorn snails, we have tried shrimp, we've tried a lot of different things, and he will just go after anything. But the horned Nerite, which is the smaller one, he has not bothered with that one at all. So the horn Nerite is the one at the front of the screen with what looks like 2 little horns coming off their shell, and then you also can have a tiger Nerite, which is sort of like an orangey brown with the dark spots, and then there's also the zebra Nerite, which is sort of like a yellow and black stripe one. All the patterns do vary. So these here are a horned and a zebra Nerite. Now with the Nerite snails, they will still breed, but the eggs will not hatch, and this is one of the reasons I like these snails so much. They don't have sort of a lot of their body come out the shell, so it is hard for a betta fish to be able to get at them. And then also the fact that when they do breed, which here you can see 2, this is 2 actually breeding, when they do breed they will still lay their eggs, and that is, I guess, a downside for some people. They don't like seeing the eggs around the aquarium. I have to say we rarely do see them, but sometimes they can lay them over your decorations and you may not like the look of that. But like I say, for us, we don't see them that often, but the eggs will not hatch. They need to be in brackish water to hatch, and so this is why I like the Nerite so much. all our betta fish do great with them, and the fact that you are not going to be overrun with snails. Now, I don't know whether you can see on the back decoration there's like little white dots. They are the eggs. It like I say, it doesn't show up that much, but sometimes you'll maybe see them stuck on plants or on the side of your aquarium. So I guess if you don't really like that, then maybe they're not the snail for you. But as far as betta fish go, I do think that they are the most likely to succeed. And then, like I say, the fact that you're not going to be overrun with snails, to me, that is another huge plus as well. So the next ones we're going to talk about are mystery snails, and I don't have a lot of footage on these simply because we don't have any right now. So the footage I'm showing is older footage from when we used to have them. These snails are very much a hit and miss with betta fish. Unfortunately, because so much of their body comes out and the tentacles can be so long, then they are actually very easy targets for betta fish. However, they are a great addition to an aquarium, and if you do have a very heavily planted one, then these probably again would be a good option, but it really would depend on the specific betta fish. The mystery snails will breed like crazy, and you don't necessarily have to have a male and female for that to happen. Very often snails, when you buy them, will come pregnant, and so you can end up with a lot of babies. So there is something to take into account if you do want to choose a mystery snail. The mystery snail is very often called an apple snail, but they are actually two completely different snails. An apple snail is absolutely huge and the size of an apple, whereas this is actually the mystery snail. So next up is the trumpet snail, and we ended up with one of these by accident, and we've had this one for probably about a year and a half now. He has got bigger and bigger as time has gone on, and he is just the only one in the tank. We never feed him, he just gets fed. When the tank gets fed, then any food that maybe makes it to the bottom, he will actually eat. Normally they just bury themselves into the substrate and they will eat any uneaten food that is in there. So unfortunately, again, I don't have a lot of footage of this one. We rarely ever see him, and he is just a one and only. I would say they are a good option for betta fish. However, they can breed like crazy, and you can end up with hundreds and hundreds of them in no time. So if you don't have the resources for that, then again, maybe they're not the snail for you. So let's move on to food, and there are a lot of things that you can actually feed them, but I'm just going to show you a few today. I'm going to start with keeping their shells healthy, and so they ideally do need calcium, and we use cuttlebone, which you will find in the bird section of a pet store, and we just break it into little small pieces and put it into the aquarium, and over time it will dissolve. We also use algae wafers, and these are the New Life Spectrum ones. And then we use the Repashy gel food. That one we do make up into that. You just add hot water to it, and I do have a video on that and can leave a link in the description box below. Once it's made up, you can store it in a little container in your refrigerator or your freezer. If you're doing it in the refrigerator, it's up to 2 weeks. In the freezer, I think it's up to 6 months, but you'd have to check the information on that because I'm not 100% sure. We do feed the snail tanks, the ones specifically where I'm breeding snails. I do feed them every single day, and I do try and give them a variety of food. And the ones that are just in the general tanks, now the Nerite snails, I have not found them to eat anything other than algae in the tank. That is probably, I would say, one of the downsides to the Nerite snails, that they do prefer to eat the algae that's actually in the tank as opposed to what I would call a man-made food. So if you don't have a great deal of algae, then you will have to try supplementing, but I have found that they will not eat algae wafers or gel food. They basically live off the algae in the tank. So for mine, thankfully we do produce enough, and so that's just what they eat. They do keep tanks very, very clean. However, you do need enough food source. Now, all the other snails, they will eat the wafers or the gel food. You can also feed zucchini, and Nerite snails, I have had them occasionally eat that, but again, not very often. But all the other snails do really enjoy that. So giving them a varied diet is a good idea. Also, if you cannot use maybe cuttlebone in the tank for calcium, then it is an idea that maybe if you used a gel food, then you can mix in a calcium supplement. You need to do that so that the shells are strong and healthy and they don't get cracked. Another thing you need to take into account also is tank size and the fact that snails do produce a lot of waste. Also, they don't necessarily take care of algae problems because they do need feeding themselves. So they're all things that you need to take into consideration if you're thinking on getting a snail. So what about snails in a planted tank? Will they eat your plants? That's something I have found not to be the case. Now, if you have a plant that is dying and the leaf is decaying, then yes, your snail will probably eat that plant. But if you have vibrant, healthy plants, then on the whole, your snails will not touch them. Alright guys, I do hope this video was helpful. Out of all these snails, I would definitely recommend the Nerite to go with betta fish. However, all these others will potentially go with them. It will just depend on the specific betta fish and of course your tank size and whether it can house a snail or not. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed to this channel and would like to see more videos like this, then please do so, and we'll see you next time.